in no way did he even come close to surviving the ground, which is one of the aspects we know of a catch, right? From all of these debates we've had since Dez caught it in 2010 or whatever that was. It was
yes,
2014.
yeah.
Um,
Dez caught it. I think Dez caught it, to tell you the truth. But,
Des did catch it. Des caught it. As always, I am your party host, Jarrett Rivera, and along with me, as always, is one of the preeminent ball knowers of USA Today Sports, and that's Chris Bumbaca. Boom. We got a special guest today, a very special guest today, the GOAT. Excited to have JB on, Jarrett Bell. Thank you for joining us, my friend.
hey, good to
Yeah, can we
be here,
clap for
guys, at this
J?
monumental point of the NFL season. Yes.
Yeah, JB, it's been wild to say the least. And obviously conference championship weekend is right around the corner, but there's obviously a lot more happening in the NFL news cycle than just the conference championship games. So before we get into previewing those games, JB, I want to talk a little bit about the coaching cycle. It's been really, really wild this year. I don't think anybody could have predicted not only Mike Tomlin, not only John Harbaugh, but now Sean McDermott is out the door in Buffalo after losing to the Broncos in the divisional round. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts about what's happening right now with the coaching cycle? Do you think teams are getting impatient? Is it just a third of the league are looking for new coaches? I'm just curious what your temperature is.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. You think about the way this season played out, and it's rolled over into the playoffs with so much unpredictability. This was supposed to be a light year per se in the coaching cycle realm of things, right? So it's completely flipped stuff on the head from that standpoint. But like you mentioned, Joe, when you think about the names of the guys, when you talk about Harbaugh and Tomlin and now McDermott, yeah, it definitely just kind of underscore how impatient a lot of these teams are right now because we're talking about accomplished coaches and yeah, only one team wins the Super Bowl a year, and yet you see some of these guys who have been proven winners um, lead, and it definitely just shows you how bizarre the NFL is still and more so.
yeah, seasons have changed, Joe. I mean, like that's what I kind of chalk it up to. We talk in life about relationships running their course, whether it's romantic, friendship, things like that. What are you going to do to get to that next level, right? Like these teams want to win Super Bowls, as JB was saying, as our colleague Nate Davis wrote in a great column on USA Today on Tuesday, as we're talking, like, you know, 31 owners are upset every Valentine's Day. And that disconnect is different than what we see in the coaching world, right? Where it's a process, system, and then it's a results based industry. We talk about it all the time. So yeah, season to change, things running their course. I've never seen 10 openings before, and it, like JB was saying, it looked like we were kind of headed for that six range, and then just it kept
Hmm.
tripling out. So very interesting.
Yeah, let me add to that too, because when you talk about the fact that there are 10 openings and a lot of people wondering, is that the most ever in the NFL? And guess what? It's not. But we had 8 openings in 2023, but you go back to Y2K, and boom, you may have been in elementary school or something back in 2000, but you had 11 openings that year in the year 2000. That was the year Bill Belichick took over for Pete Carroll with the Patriots. That was the year that Mike Martz took over for Dick Vermeer and several others in that year. So we've seen it before, but not quite like this, I think. It's just been crazy because a lot of this we did not see coming, but it has happened before. Um, and it's just been just so difficult to explain the reason why. But man, who are you going to replace some of these guys with? There'll be some up and coming coaches that we don't know. But so far, you've seen some of the established coaches get another crack right away. One being Kevin Stefanski. Now, I've been in Atlanta here now for going on 5 years, and now the Falcons are on their third coach in my time in Atlanta. So there's something to be said for franchises that stick with people. Steve Bisciotti said it the other day that he hoped not to have another one of these press conferences with the Ravens, every, so often. But there are some things you look at them, you look at the Arizona Cardinals, the Tennessee Titans, the Falcons, and some of these teams, like, they're having these coaching cycles, like, every 2, 3, 4 years back, and that's just too much, which reminds me of something that Art Rooney II told me when we were talking about, the coaching stability thing a couple years ago when we had this conversation, but it was like their philosophy, and we Pittsburgh is gold standard for, sticking with coaches for a long time. But he said basically, when those opportunities have come or the heat has intensified over Mike Tomlin at the time, it's like you kinda go through a decision of, do you wanna blow things up and start all over again, or do you wanna tweak, you know, a few things to support coaching? The Steelers' philosophy has always been the latter. "Hey, let's just try to fix what we can here, there, be it a coordinator here or some players there," as opposed to starting, over after we've blown it up. And some of these other franchises, they go, "Yeah, boy," they blow it up, and they start over again.
Right. And JB, I'm going to be Captain Obvious with my take here, but it just goes to show you how holistic all of the NFL is, right? Like everything from the top down, you got to have good ownership, you got to have good front office people, you have to have a good head coach, you have to have good players, you have to have good water boys, you have to have a good training. So like everything about it has to be good in order to win games. And one coach who won a lot of games, who's now out the door. I want to touch on this briefly because it's the most recent firing is Sean McDermott, JB. And to me, this was a little bit of a surprise. Obviously, the Bills have faced Super Bowl or bust expectations, especially this year more than ever, with no Burrow, no Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. Right? Broncos handled their business. Josh Allen 0-3 in playoff games, turned the ball over for 0-3 in overtime playoff games, turned the ball over 4 times in that game. But the axe falls on Sean McDermott. I'm curious what your thoughts are specifically to the Bill situation.
Yeah, you know what? It kinda shows something about the officiating controversies, if you will, and how they can impact so much. When you talk about Sean McDermott, getting fired after games they lost in the fashion that they did it. Yeah, it's unfortunate that they lost. You thought this was a great opportunity for Buffalo after so many, years in the playoffs, with Josh Allen for it to go down the way it did. It just seems to be so unfair to Sean McDermott, and yeah, my heart goes out to him, to tell you the truth, just because, they've knocked at the door so often. So, this one kinda stunned me, even though there were rumblings before the game or in the weeks really that, hey, could he be on the hot seat if they don't come through and all that? It just seems like it was quite a reach by the Bills to make this move right now.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat with JB as it comes to firing news. Maybe we should have been more prepared for it, just to hear it. Because how many times can you suffer a heartbreaking loss in the playoffs? Goes back to what I was saying earlier. Sometimes you just need to switch things up if it's not working out. Like that's just how life goes sometimes. I mean, uh, are we gonna do? I think we're gonna do the officiating conversation in a second here after what Joe. We were gonna bring in our good friend of the pod, Joe Burrow's wise words, and then maybe we could go off there. But yeah, that's where I'm at with McDermott. I felt like it was surprising. Maybe you should have been more prepared for it, as with any of these moves, whether it was Harbaugh, Tomlin.
Right. And you know what, Boom, you brought up the officiating here, and I do want to touch, and you mentioned Joe Burrow, and like a lot of people, Joe Burrow was home watching the games this weekend, unfortunately not playing in one, but he seemed to find his Twitter password, and I wanted his X password if you want to be that guy, but he seemed to find his X password, and he put out a post this weekend about the officiating and some of the controversial catch calls. Obviously, there was the one in Buffalo that Sean McDermott and co weren't happy about, but Burrow said this: the amount of people that don't understand what a catch is in the rule book flabbergasts me, and it's not the officials. The two plays yesterday, he means over the weekend, were not difficult calls, and they still got them both right. JB, the officiating conversation is one that's never going to end. What's a catch? What's not a catch? It feels like it changes game by game. Again, I want to know what you make of this entire situation with the officials and the catches, all of that. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think you just kinda touched on it. It's the consistency, and even though when you look at what happened in Denver with with Brandon Cooks and Jaquan McMillan ripping the ball out on the rollover, um, technically, yeah, I guess they did get it right, but if you're watching the game live with your own eyesight and you see that, even if regardless of what side you are on, right? Regardless if you thought it was a catch and we still saw the freeze frame and the knee count and all of that, you can have that. If you thought it was a catch or an interception, here's the thing that really, I think, drives a lot of the debate and the controversy is consistency. So maybe you saw a game 2 weeks ago or the day before, if you will, and you saw a play that, looked very similar and it was ruled a different way. I mean, I think that's the thing that always gets the NFL in trouble, and if from an officiating standpoint, is just the consistency. And a lot of times, most times, they really do get it right. If you look at some of these real tough, decisions that are made in the moment, you got to give the officials a lot of credit for getting it right 90 something, 90, high 90% of the time. But when you see one situation here and another situation there, and they don't always square up, that is where you get the controversy and you get the conspiracy theories and all of the other things. But, from an NFL standpoint, it's, it's weird because I don't know if the league is really motivated to do a whole lot about it because the conversation is generated. It's not going to cost the NFL any money, even though I know that there's the argument about full-time officials, and I think that's going to, drum up some more in the offseason as it always did. Mike Rivera, the Fox analyst and former NFL officiating head, said he thinks that there should be full-time referees in the NFL, not so much, the entire crews need to be full-time, but he sounded the alarm and said, "Hey, maybe this is the next step that the league really, really needs to hone in on as they try to move forward here." And oh, by the way, there's a new contract that's going to have to be hammered out during this offseason with the officials union, and so maybe that'll be the time when the conversation ramps up again about full-time referees, if not others.
JB, you bring up something I've been kind of thinking about here over the last 72 hours or so as we talk about the refs and the officials and how the league deals with it. And you also mentioned money, which is actually what I was thinking about as it pertains to the refs here. The NFL has a problem, right? Just the consistency and the fact that the labor agreements coming up, all those things that you said. The NFL is also very good at throwing money at problems. Why wouldn't they choose this inflection point to throw a bunch of money at their officiating problem while also keeping it in line with how they do business otherwise? Make it a content machine. Make your refs tryouts the newest offseason reality show. Make it so that you have young people who are invested in this game. I'm not kidding, guys. Make it so that you have young people who are invested in this game who want to see it played the right way, who want to see it called the correct way, a viable career path, right? And then as long as you keep the guardrails up of objectivity in this crazy era of social media and betting and things like that, like you have to be careful there. Yes, of course. But I don't think it would be any different than the player coaches side of it. If you're getting paid by the league and things like that, like I think there's a way for the NFL to do this in a way that makes them money, but by also throwing money at it and just totally revamping the way they go about it. That was an aside that I did not expect to get into today because I've just been kind of ruminating on it, but I don't know. I think it makes sense. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense, Boom. And for me, to JB's point, your point, it's the consistency, right? And I'm not just saying this as a bitter Jets fan who hasn't been on the beneficial side of a call since the Obama administration, but A lot of it is just like what drives me nuts as a fan watching these games every week is, oh well, this officiating crew calls more penalties than any other crew, right? And I know that there's a lot of context that goes into that. It's the different teams you're playing, it's this, it's that, right? But like for me, why is there no like level setting for the officials every offseason? Why is there no ref school? Why is there no like that's what drives me nuts. Like I watch one game and I see a pass interference call made in one game, and you see another game where the guy's mauling him and no flag is thrown, right? Or like you always get into the last 2 minutes of a game and they're like, oh well, you just got to let the guys play at that spot. Like I don't, that doesn't make sense to me after officiating the game
Pass
for
interference just goes out the window in the last
right, like
minutes.
all of that. It makes no sense to me why you would officiate a game differently in the last 2 minutes of a game as opposed to the first 58. Like none of it makes sense. So yeah, I'm with you, Boom. I think that there's something to be had here with the officials. There has to be some kind of change, whether it's the transparency in how they make the calls, whether it's again having an officiating university during the off season to make sure these guys are in rooms and studying, like taking tests, like that kind of thing. I do think that goes a long way.
Yeah,
It's a
but
pro. Sorry, JB, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, they do a lot of those things really when you look at it, maybe not to the extent that we think or a lot of people might think they should, and so there's still some room to go on that level, but I think if you talk to the people who run the officiating department, yeah, they do have off-season, seminars and that sort of thing, but as we're sitting here talking about it, I really wonder and hey, to your point, Boom, the NFL as good as it is at generating revenue, this might be another opportunity.
That's
And
what I'm saying.
if you're Jerry Jones, you probably already thought about some things that we can do to make money off of this.
Text
But
the clip to Jerry. Text the clip to Jerry. We'll
exactly.
get a
But
cut.
yeah, but all joking aside, I think this all underscores the human element that may never go away. They make everything that we've suggested and every other, armchair official has suggested, and we could still be sitting here a year from now, debating some controversial call because there is that human element. So, yeah, it's a trip.
Yeah, and speaking of human element, JB, I just want to put a bow on the whole Cooks catch INT thing, just because, this is the platform I've been waiting to do it on. So, like any wise man, I agree with Joe Burrow, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And like I said before, we're getting on to 72 hours here of the play, but and the reaction and the debate, I'm getting tired of it, but I think it's a conversation worth having. So the one gripe I'll hear from the Buffalo side, and I think this is what Sean McDermott was getting at before he really started to play up the theatrics, is that he should not have had to call timeout for some elongated review. I know that there was about like 80 to 90 seconds during the change of possession, in which CBS did a pretty good job of showing the replay of it all. And I think for me, that's where like it pretty clearly showed that Cooks might have momentarily possessed it. I think McMillan had his hand in there the entire time. So even saying that Cooks caught it is pretty dubious in my opinion. But in no way did he even come close to surviving the ground, which is one of the aspects we know of a catch, right? From all of these debates we've had since Dez caught it in 2010 or whatever that was. It was
Yes.
2014.
Yeah.
Um,
Dez caught it. I think Dez caught it, to tell you the truth. But,
Des did catch it. Des caught it. Yep.
yeah, I spent a Sunday at NFL headquarters a few years ago, probably was about 4 years ago, where I spent a Sunday in the command center just to kinda get a sense of, how they operated. Now, this was not during the playoffs, it was during the regular season, but let me just describe the scene for you guys. It was like a room with, no windows, obviously, but it just had a bank of monitors. They had different people at each monitor checking the game, and then when a play came on that was, needed to be reviewed, definitely a touchdown or a turnover, there were supervisors in that room. They'd run over to that screen, and maybe there'd be 2 or 3 people, including the original replay reviewer, and a supervisor, a director of officiating, and they collaborate right there on the spot, and they, have communication with the officials at the game, and it kind of flowed pretty pretty quickly, and I think that's I thought about that the other day when I'm in Denver and that review came down. It's like, "Oh, yeah, they've looked at this and they've had several eyes on it, and this is the conclusion that they came to." Now, for Sean McDermott, that definitely is no solace to what happened, and if I'm him and you can't challenge it, it's in overtime, it's in the final 2 minutes, all of that, but calling the timeout was, like, the best thing he could do really in that situation, say, "Give it a little bit more time," but by that time, they'd already looked at it, but, yeah, all that to say, the debate goes on and the conversation goes on.
The bigger question, if I'm a Bills fan, or the bigger questions, I suppose, why is my star QB putting, it was a good pass, but I guess in the theoretical sense, why is the ball in harm's way for a fourth time in this game in overtime here? I know, he had an open guy, I guess. But that open guy is a 32-year-old, I believe Brandon Cooks is, who has been on your team for like a month, and he's your best downfield option in this game. That's a bigger question. So Bills fans, want to give Josh a pass and blame the refs again. To that, I say, give me a break. If you can't see the difference between the Cooks play and the Devontae Adams play from the Sunday, which caused a momentary debate, or the Aaron Rodgers play from earlier this season, and the same game that Isaiah Likely thought he had a game-winning touchdown but did, then that signals to me a couple things about you as a human being. One, you are incapable of holding multiple truths in your head at one time. And two, you have no desire for nuance or context and letting that affect your emotions and your feelings. And if that's the case, I don't want anything to do with you. So this was a great litmus test. Thank you, officials and Brandon Cooks and Josh Allen, because now I know how to go through my life and decide which people I want to keep in it and which ones I don't.
Well, somebody's got to stand up for Buffalo. Boom. I think that's the thing. Somebody's got to stand up for Buffalo. So. All right, guys, a very, very lively discussion about officiating, but we got to get to what's right in front of us, and that's conference championship weekend. Let's start with the Broncos and Patriots. Hardly the quarterback matchup anybody expected, JB, with Jarrett Stidham taking over for Bo Nix, who stunningly, shockingly, I don't know the word you want to use to describe it, out for the season after suffering a fractured bone in his ankle. Sean Payton gave everybody the news after the divisional win over the Bills. What are your thoughts? What are we going to see from this one? What's Sean Payton got up his sleeve?
Yeah, Sean Payton, being an experienced coach, will come up with the best game plan possible for Jarrett Stidham, and I think there's one sliver of an advantage, if you will, or one unknown, one thing that they can really try to roll with is the fact that we don't know what we don't know about Jarrett Stidham, especially in this situation. Now, good thing they're at home. Good thing they've got a great defense in Denver. They've got the home field advantage and the crowd and all that. And maybe they're going to, and there'll be some things in how Jarrett Stidham, executes that offense versus Bo Nix. I think the thing that if you're a Broncos fan, you liked about Bo Nix, although there are a lot of questions about things in his consistency early in the game and how that offense flowed all season. But you always felt good if you got down to crunch time that Bo Nix was going to do the right thing. He was going to make the right decision. He was not going to make the big bonehead mistake that some quarterbacks make, and that's saying a lot. I mean, I'm just really being complimentary of Bo Nix by saying, there was a certain trust factor that he had earned and had built in his 2 years as a starting quarterback that gave the Denver Broncos so much confidence when they got to that situation. So, you don't have that now with Jarrett Stidham, but maybe you'll get some other things, and they'll craft a game plan. And I remember when Drew Brees got hurt a few years ago when Peyton was the coach of the Milwaukee Saints. And, Teddy Bridgewater's quarterback, and they went 5-0. We've seen other situations, including Peyton's mentor Bill Parcells going for a Super Bowl with Jeff Hostetler at quarterback to replace an injured Phil Simms. And I know that Peyton will or has talked to Parcells this week for whatever that's worth. Um, Parcells are reminding, hey, it's possible. So yeah, it's no longer just the AFC Championship game; it's the Jarrett Stidham game.
Look, I think like JB was saying, Stidham has this advantage of he's in a no lose situation, right? Like he can only come in and impress in my mind. So we'll see how it shakes out. Peyton's gonna have a plan for him, and he's got a pretty good defense on his team to help him out. So he's got a few things working in his favor. Great offensive line to protect him.
JB, what do you make of the Patriots? Their offense looked a little vanilla versus the Texans. Obviously, a great defense there. Drake May looked pedestrian. Obviously, again, the elements played into that game. They upended the Texans divisional round, but Mike Vrabel, he's got this team moving. Like, I mean, no doubt about it. They put to bed all the talk of having an easy schedule this season. You get all the way to the AFC Championship game. There's no more room for doubt, right? So, what do you make of the Patriots in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, one of the most impressive, comebacks in the NFL. And Mike Vrabel, we knew that the Patriots would be better with him as head coach. And just knowing the type of coach he is and, how he fits in the culture and all of that. But I don't know if anybody expected it to be a situation that they'd be, perhaps going to the Super Bowl. And so all, props to that. As far as Drake May goes, his development from year 1 to year 2 has just been amazing to watch. Now I don't buy a whole lot into the the element having much to do with what happened with them the other day against Houston. They won the I just have been in Foxborough 3 times when Patriot weather is in the mix, and they had a different quarterback at that time, but they put up 40 points in that weather. So it's not always that. Part of it is obviously going against the defense. But I think the thing that you like about Drake May is that, as a young quarterback, he makes great decisions. That and that downfield passing game all season has been, something to marvel at. And so you always want to have balance and and to be able to do a lot of different things. And I think that's kind of what they have going for them with the Patriots. Now, playing in Denver will be another challenge. And in order to get to a Super Bowl level, you're going to have big, tough challenges along the way. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But the Broncos defense is going to be, um, you know, a real solid unit for him, and solid maybe underselling them a bit. I mean, it's really a a great defense. I mean, we can make the case that the Houston Texans had the best defense in the NFL this season. You could look at Seattle and say, well, maybe the Seahawks have the best defense in the NFL this season. Well, the other team you can say that about is Denver. And their defense, let them get sacks, and they'll do that. They ended up having, like, 5 turnovers against Buffalo the other day, and that's not really been their MO. The Broncos defense was the most turnovers they had in the game, all season. I think the highest before that was 3 in a game. So they have not made their mark like, say, the Chicago Bears this season and the Jacksonville Jaguars on turnovers. They've done it with, you know, a consistent pass rush that led the league, in sacks, and for a while was chasing the all-time record for sacks. So that's been their thing. They get a lot of heat. They get a lot of different people. They've got a deep rotation. And, oh, by the way, on the back end with Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss at the corners and Jaquan McMillan, the guy who got the interception that cost them was controversy, one of the best nickelbacks in the NFL. So they can do things on all 3 levels that, really just kinda underscore how solid that defense is. So that'll be the big challenge for Drake May, and will it be enough for Denver to overcome not having Bo Nix? Maybe. We'll see.
The good news for May and the Patriots offense, which has had more of like a behind the scenes start to their postseason through the first 2 games, I would say. The defense has really been the driving force of the Patriots, and it's because they've gone against two really good defenses already, and now a third awaits them. They had to go through the Chargers, who are like the Broncos, their AFC West counterpart, strong at all three levels. The Texans, perhaps the most elite unit in the entire league, in bad conditions. And it wasn't a great game for that offense for three quarters there. They were 1 for 10 on third down entering their possession with 122 to go in the third quarter. I think they had 6 first downs. But look, Drake has made the tough throws all season long when he's needed to. And Sunday against Houston was no exception. I look at just even the smart decision making on the early 4th and 1. You have Pop Douglas in the slot there and that he's going to be open. Quick, clean throw, touchdown. Now you're leading against a really good team, or a really good defense, I should say. Um, the throw to Kayshon Boutte over Derek Stingley, one of the league's best quarterbacks. That throw takes stones, and it was perfect. And he's done it 2 years in a row now. Like, the guy can absolutely sling it. It's fun to watch. And if he can just keep on doing that in the moments where they really need him to, I think the Pats win. I think that they'll be fine. I do think it's going to be a close game, though, even with Stidham at quarterback. I don't see this trending into blowout territory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? What's really funny is the fact that we're talking about the Patriots and the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. This is a throwback, okay? But back in the day, not too far back in the day, but no, at one point we had Tom Brady and Peyton Manning in this situation. Now we've got Jarrett Stidham and Drake May.
I think
So
it
Yeah.
was January 2016.
yeah,
That
Yep.
that
10
AFC
years.
Championship game.
10 years ago. Yeah, it's fun to watch Drake May unless you're a fan of a team in the AFC East. Obviously,
That's
certain teams in the UFC, but this is what it is. All right, so we got our thoughts down on Patriots Broncos this weekend, JB. But Rams Seahawks, this one excites me because I love the Rams. Matthew Stafford is just the master. I am so ready for this matchup. What do you take? What's your biggest? What do you take away from this game this weekend?
yeah. The Rams should have beaten them in Seattle, 3 weeks ago, 3, 4 weeks ago, when they had their chance and they're up, 30-14 or something like that in the fourth quarter. And oh, by the way, that game changed with Rashid Shaheed returning a, a punt for a touchdown. He has been just tremendous. I know there's a lot to like about the Seahawks, including their balance. And not only just the balance between offense, defense, and special
I'm so
teams,
sorry. I'm on a work
uh,
call. No
but also
worries.
like balance and offense. Kenneth Walker's
Do you need
in
me?
the running game, and then
Just
Zach Charbonnet, who I don't know if he's going to play this week. His injury situation would be something to factor into this thing. But Shaheed has made such a difference in that team, given that dimension. And to get him right at the trade deadline, oh man, John Snyder, big ups to him and the Seahawks for being able to do that. All that said, I like the Rams because I think they gotta go into this thing thinking, we could beat this team with everything I just said about the Seahawks. The Rams have got to feel like, hey, we owe them more. So we'll see if that comes to fruition like that.
No, JB, I'm in a pretty similar boat to you here. Real quick on Shaheed and the whole trade deadline thing for forever, or at least since this trade deadline, I was saying how Jacoby Myers was the acquisition of the deadline.
Mhm.
Maybe it was Shaheed all along. I think you can make a case for both, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shaheed's impact has just been awesome for them. It was from that first game, in which he returns the punt that kickstarts that comeback to the win against the Niners, in which he kind of sealed it right from the beginning. Yeah, look, the Seattle defense has been so fun to watch all year. But the big one for me in this is going to be Sean McVay, who turns 40 on Saturday. So maybe he gets a little extra wisdom heading into this matchup. But I was really confused with the game planning, the play calling in Chicago on Sunday night. I think they had run it like 7 times in the first half, maybe 10 times through the first three quarters. or one of those possessions in the third quarter to that point. So, and this is what got him into trouble in that disastrous Thursday night loss for
The
them
Week
was that
16 game versus Seattle. Yep.
he got away from the run, and that's actually kind of been a theme in a lot of their losses this year is just not relying on the run game when you need to, getting away from it with leads. I don't know what he was doing on Sunday when it came to like Stafford. Maybe he was trying to get Stafford going or
Yeah.
something.
I'll
But it
say,
was, it was
sorry, Boom. I need to cut in here because there was a sequence in that game on the Rams game this past weekend where Blake Corum had two carries. They pick up a first down. He picks up 11 yards. They go to an end around, and the end around goes absolutely nowhere. And from that point on, it's like it's like McVay got scared of the run again, and it's driving me nuts because I know we talked about it on the VOD. That Week 16 game where like the second half there was like 3 combined carries for Corum and Williams, and you're saying to
we've been
yourself like,
saying
dude,
it.
run the ball, run the ball, man. Like it's just so yeah. To your point, sorry, but continue on the Rams.
No, that's the point. That's it. Like run the ball. You said it, Joe. Look, and like JB, I'm on the Rams just because it feels right. They go back and forth during their regular season matchups, 2 really tight games. Hopefully another one here for the entertainment factor and just how I think it's going to shake out. But one thing that the Rams kind of need to be wary of is how brutal their special teams has been kind of all season long, and against a team like the Seahawks that has a weapon like Shaheed, who we've been talking about. So kicking the ball away used to be a lot easier than it is now, had less dire consequences. You give the Seahawks enough chances to start at the 35, they have a pretty good kicker in Jason Myers. That they're not afraid to line up and take points. And if you're Sean McVay and you're not running the ball and you have a couple 4th down misses, all of a sudden you might find yourself trailing.
Yeah. Yeah, special teams might be the real it is definitely a big advantage for Seattle just based on everything that's happened to this point. And when the Rams were lining up for that field goal the other day, I'm like, "Okay, we'll see." And it worked out.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to the
They
thicker
won the
kicker.
game.
Shout
There
out
was
to the
no
thicker kicker.
Crazy call by Tirico. I couldn't believe he went there. I was like, Mike, you dog. But hey, that's why that booth has had some really great moments down the stretch. So